Greetings, friends and educators. Welcome to the Informed Educator Research and Teaching in the Anthropocene. We're your hosts, Anne and Lauren, and today we welcome Dr. Lee to our podcast. Dr. Lee is a passionate and dedicated researcher and educator with over 20 years of experience in language education and more than 6 years of research experience in AI literacy and AI education. She holds a PhD in curriculum studies from Western University in Canada with a research focus on AI education and pedagogy innovation. Currently, she is preparing to begin a postdoctoral fellowship at Ontario Tech University, where her work bridges theory and practice, exploring how emerging technologies, especially artificial intelligence, can transform teaching and learning in the 21st century and shape the future of education. Dr. Lee is the developer of Design Fiction Pedagogy, a multimodal approach that invites students and educators to critically engage with emerging technologies through speculative design and ethical reflection. By combining narrative, imagination, and critical inquiry, her work fosters holistic and human-centered approaches to technology education. Drawing on her experience designing AI camps and leading professional development workshops, Dr. Lee is passionate about empowering educators and learners to navigate the evolving digital world with creativity, care, and justice. Welcome, Dr. Lee.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. I'm so thrilled to join you today and share a little bit about my work on AI and education.
Wonderful. We're really looking forward to this conversation. And to start off, we'll ask, what does a holistic approach to AI education look like in K-12 classrooms, and why is it important for today's learners?
Thank you for the question. To me, a holistic approach to education is about preparing students not just to use AI, but to understand, question, and even reimagine it. It goes far beyond teaching technical skills or coding. Instead, it invites learners to think about AI from multiple angles, such as ethical, social, cultural, emotional, and creative. One framework I often refer to is the AI for K 12 five big ideas. Things like perception, representation and reasoning, learning, natural interaction, and societal impact are the five big ideas. These ideas help break AI down into digestible concepts for different age levels. For example, a grade 4 student might learn how a robot sees using sensors and how that relates to perception, while a high schooler could explore the implications of facial recognitions on privacy and surveillance. These big ideas offer a great foundation for scaffolding content, but a holistic approach also demands that we go deeper into how these technologies affect our lives, our values, and our futures. So, what does that look like in practice, you may wonder? It means creating interdisciplinary, inquiry based learning experience. I will give you an example. Like in one of the AI literacy camps I co designed, students were asked to design AI prototypes to solve real world problems and then create stories from the perspective of different stakeholders involved or impacted by AI technology they design, such as the users, the developers, or even those who might be harmed by it. And this helped them explore not only how AI works, but also how it connects to their own lives and communities. And we then facilitate discussions on the future implications of these AI tools for various stakeholders and encourage the students to refine and redesign their solutions based on ethical concerns or unintended consequences. That combination of creativity, technical understanding, and ethical reflection is really at the heart of what I consider holistic AI education. And in educational context, it also means helping students see AI not just as a black box, but as something they can impact and critique. We need to ask who created this AI tool, like what assumptions or biases might be built into it, and what are the unintended consequences of using it in classrooms or society. And these questions are often missing when we treat AI as just a cool new tool to boost the productivity or engagement in classrooms. But they are crucial if we want students to become responsible participants in a world where AI is shaping everything from hiring decisions, from climate policies, and so on. And another key part of this holistic view is inclusivity. So we use principles such as universal design for learning to make sure that our activities are accessible and engaging for diverse learners. For instance, some students might be interested in exploring AI concepts through storytelling, while others through visual design, coding, or hands on simulations. So we also need to include perspectives from different communities, especially those who are often underrepresented in STEM education affected by AI system. And I will add that holistic AI education isn't just for students. It applies to teachers too. Like many educators I work with are curious, but also cautious. They want to introduce AI in meaningful ways, but aren't sure where to start. So I always encourage co-learning approach where teachers model curiosity and critical thinking, even when they don't have all the answers. And in my own research, I developed something called Design Fiction Pedagogy, which invites students and teachers to imagine future scenarios involving AI, not to predict the future, but to shape it. Through speculative storytelling, students reflect on what kind of AI society they want to live in the future. And this fosters critical agency and help them connect the dots between technology and ethics, between imagination and impact. So, to sum up, a holistic approach to AI education is about more than just teaching tools or technology. It's about fostering critical, creative, and caring thinkers. That is, students who are not just AI users, but future designers, citizens, and like policy makers or change makers. So, in a world increasingly shaped by AI, this kind of education is not optional to me. I think it's essential.
Thank you for that. And I really love that you brought up critical thinking at multiple points during this response. A common critique we hear against AI in educational settings is that it reduces or even eliminates the opportunities for students to practice critical thinking. But what I'm hearing from you and what I read in one of your articles, a literature review exploring the pedagogical approaches to AI education, which we'll link in the show notes, suggests that some of these approaches really do offer many opportunities for critical thinking approaches like inquiry based learning, experiential learning, project based learning, to name a few. And these were listed also as common approaches in your article. And so I'm just really grateful that you addressed that. Thank you for that.
I'd also like to add that I'm very interested. I can't wait to try this actually. The suggestion that you give to imagine future scenarios with your students as a speculative storytelling strategy. As someone who has always been quite a fan of science fiction, which is, just speculative fiction, I think this would be a really fun but also critical activity that could be used with students of almost, well, probably any age, any school age child could imagine a future scenario and then really work through all of those creative, technical, and ethical implications within that scenario.
Yeah, and we also tried design fiction pedagogy in teachers' education, and we involved teachers, pre-service teachers, use that method to reimagine a future with AI in their classroom teaching and with their careers.
Can you please just repeat the name of the method?
Design fiction pedagogy.
Design Fiction Pedagogy. Okay.
Mhm.
Also, if you don't mind, Dr. Lee, you mentioned five big ideas earlier in your response, starting with perception, representation. I was wondering if you could just repeat those one more time because I wasn't able to write them all down quickly enough.
Yeah. The five big ideas are first one, perception, second, presentation and reasoning, third, learning, fourth, natural interaction, and last, societal impact.
Okay, so for the next question here, could you talk about some of the key ethical considerations that teachers should be aware of when incorporating AI into their teaching practice?
Thank you for the question. That's an important question. So, there are several key ethical considerations teachers could keep in mind when incorporating AI in their teaching practice. These go far beyond simply knowing how to operate the tools. Just because an AI tool is available doesn't mean it's automatically appropriate for all learners and in all learning contexts. So one of the first concern is the data privacy and surveillance. Many AI powered educational tools, especially those used for proctoring, behavior tracking, or even personalized learning, collect and process large amounts of student data. Students, particularly in K 12 settings, a vulnerable population. So we need to be extremely cautious about where that data goes, how it's stored, and who has access to it. I often remind teachers that using AI also means making decisions on behalf of our students about what kind of data trials they leave behind. And the second major issue is bias in algorithms. AI systems are trained on large data bits, like sets, and those data sets can contain historical inequalities, stereotypes, and underrepresentation of marginalized groups. So even tools that seem quite neutral, like automatic essay scorers or AI tutors, can produce unfair outcomes for certain students. So it is crucial for teachers to question who designed this tool, who like what assumptions does it make about learners. Another concern is transparency and explainability. Many AI tools function like black boxes. They produce outputs without clearly give the reasoning, and that can make it difficult for teachers to trust them or for students to learn from them. So when we introduce AI tools in the classroom, we need to help students understand what the tool does, what it doesn't do, and how to critically evaluate its responses. And that's an ethical practice in itself. And I think this leads to the broader point. Teachers are not just passive users of any AI tools. We are ethical mediators. We model for students how to engage with technology thoughtfully, and when we are encouraged is through co-learning. Instead of presenting AI tools as perfect or not good at all, I ask teachers to explore them alongside students. We ask together how accurate it is, who met this benefit, who met this harm. This practice invites transparency, shared inquiry, and care into the learning process. Beyond these long-standing ethical considerations, a current challenge I see is the arm race between generative AI use and the detection tools. On one side, teachers are asking me, so what's the best tool to detect AI use in my students' assignments? And on the other side, students are asking, how do I avoid being caught by those tools? So it becomes a race of tools, AI versus AI, rather than a conversation about learning, integrity, and meaningful assessment. That, to me, is a red flag. So let's take a step back. AI tools like ChatGPT and Google Gemini are now widely available. Students are using them to brainstorm, summarize, or even generate full essays. And yes, it's absolutely important to talk about academic integrity. But if we reduce the entire conversation to detection, what tools to use to catch students, we risk reinforcing the a punitive, surveillance-driven culture that does not actually help anyone learn. A scenario I often share comes from a recent talk I gave on AI and assessment. Imagine a student submit an essay. It's polished, coherent, it passes turned in, and checks every box on the rubric. But when you read it, something feels off. It lacks voice, nuance, or real engagement with the course concepts. It may not be plagiarized, and it may not even be fully AI generated, but it also may not reflect real thinking. This isn't just about catching students using AI, it's about asking deeper questions. What are we really assessing? If AI can produce something that appears perfect and passes all of our tools, but doesn't reflect deep thinking, reflect real learning, then the problem isn't just the students or the AI tool. The problem is with our assessment design. So instead of escalating the detective race, I encourage educators to shift focus towards designing AI resilient assessment, that activities that emphasize process, critical reflection, and authentic voice. That could mean something like having students submit reflective commentary alongside their final work. What did they use AI for and why? Something like designing multi steps assignments where students show drafts, revisions, and thought processes, and asking students to critique or improve an AI generated piece. At last, using oral components like portfolios or project based assignments instead of a final product. And these approaches don't just beat the AI, they center the learner. And this also helps us address the other major ethical considerations we talked about: data privacy, bias, and explainability. Many AI detection tools themselves are opaque, and they are black boxes that generate probability scores without clear justification, and sometimes flag perfect, legitimate student work as AI written. That creates anxiety, distrust, and even injustice in classrooms. So, when teachers ask me what tools to use, I try to gently shift the question. Instead of asking, how do I catch students using I encourage them to ask, how can I use AI? Like, how can I make AI use transparent, critical, and constructive in my classroom? That that reframing turns AI from a threat into a teaching opportunity. And for students, I invite them to reflect honestly on their process, not as a punitive way, but as part of becoming thoughtful, ethical learners in a digital age. And when they realize that their teachers are curious co learners, not just as AI please, it opens the door for more responsible and authentic use of those technologies. In the end, the goal isn't to beat the tools. The goal is to build a classroom culture where integrity, inquiry, and creativity matter more than shortcuts, and where both teachers and the students feel empowered to ask, what kind of AI future do we want to co create?
Um, Thank you for that. And something that I think that I'm learning from you as I read your work and hear you speak is that we can look at AI education in almost two separate ways, right? And I think when we think about it, we're often quick in educational settings to think of AI as a tool. AI as a tool for either detecting plagiarism or academic dishonesty, or as a tool to for efficiency in the classroom. But in your work, you talk about AI. That you say it's important to make the distinction between learning tasks and learning activities. So if we're looking at an AI learning task, we're learning about AI. And in a learning activity, we might be using AI as a tool for learning about another topic, which could be about anything. And so we're talking a lot. I think today what I'm hearing a lot about is AI learning tasks. So how do we teach students about AI, and you're promoting a lot. You're heavily promoting a co-learning approach to learning about AI, a transparent approach. Is that
Mhm.
is that correct?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And I just wanted to highlight that, right? Because we talk about AI and we hear about it all the time being discussed as a tool, right? Like in my work, I think a lot about the environmental impacts of AI, and I've noticed that that conversation is has become has largely disappeared from educational conversation that in my small circles. And we've gone right to AI as a tool for efficiency. Oh, it's okay that we use it, and here's some ways that we can use it, and can we detect plagiarism, just like you're saying today. But we need to take a step back, I think, and think about what AI is really, and how broad the topic is, and how it can be used, how we can be learning about it with our students in a way that's empowering for them as learners and citizens of society. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I've highlighted a number of items there that I'm going to go back and review for my own study. So thank you for your comprehensive answer. I also just want to say that in terms of thinking of activity and inquiry opportunities that center the learner as opposed to centering the AI, I know that this is a conversation I've been hearing that, well, what do we do? Is everything in class work now? Is everything an oral presentation? And it seems that we're in a time of growth and brainstorming and creativity, whereas a community of educators and learners, we are just starting to understand what some of those different activities and strategies might be. But one idea that I hadn't heard before that you suggested just now is to invite students to submit a reflective piece alongside another piece where they walk through how and where and why they used AI, and perhaps challenges and benefits, so that you have the two pieces coexisting in a conversation and the student remains centered in their learning. So I just wanted to highlight that as a potential strategy that I hadn't heard before and is exciting to put in the toolkit.
Yeah, one interesting task may like a comparison between what is generated by AI and what is generated by students themselves, like students do the work itself, and then it turns AI to do the work and make comparisons between the two works. That's interesting.
That's very interesting because it's not judging the student work. It's a conversation about comparison. And I think students would respond very well to that. So, considering these ethical considerations and all that we've said, how do you believe that teacher education programs could better prepare pre service teachers and practicing educators to critically and effectively engage with AI tools?
Yeah. I'd like to brief the context before we delve into the question itself. So, in recent years, several Canadian provinces have begun updating their K 12 curriculum guidelines to include components of AI, reflecting growing awareness of AI's role in education and society. For example, Ontario has integrated AI related learning outcomes in grade 1 to 8 and grade 9 mathematics, science, technology, and computer science curricula, emphasizing transferable skills such as reasoning and problem solving, alongside coding concepts like conditional logic and nested loops, etc. Other provinces, including Newfoundland, Prince Edward Island, Saskatchewan, have incorporated AI concepts into their secondary level computer science courses, often highlighting real world applications and ethical considerations. This growing curricular presence of AI creates an urgent need for teacher education programs to equip both pre-service teacher and practicing educators with the skills, knowledge, and ethical frameworks to engage with AI efficiently. When preparing teachers to engage with AI, it is helpful to think in terms of three levels of knowledge: content knowledge, technical knowledge, and pedagogical knowledge. For content knowledge, teachers need a strong understanding of basic AI concepts, their capacities and limitations, as well as an ethical and societal implications. For example, a teacher should know what generative AI like ChatGPT and Google Gemini is. It is a type of language model that can produce text, summarize ideas, or answer certain questions. Well, it is good at producing coherent language and explanations. It is it has its own limitations. If you let ChatGPT to do a math like calculating how many teeth in a page, it won't do a good job. So sometimes when it answers your questions, it makes up facts and may provide misleading information. For example, we gave a pre-service teacher workshop. Sorry, example can be this: in a pre-service workshop, teachers met explore generative AI like ChatGPT or a AI tutor, testing its responses to both factual questions and creative prompts. They can see firsthand where it succeeds and where it fails, which help them guide students to critically evaluate AI outputs rather than accepting them blindly. The preparation strategies may include fundamental courses on AI concepts and ethics, some case studies showing AI's strengths and limitations, and discussions on societal impacts, privacy, and equity issues, etc. And then we come to technical knowledge. Teachers need hands on experience with AI tools, understanding how to use, configure, and evaluate them critically themselves. It's not enough to just tell them how to operate a certain AI tool. They need to know its limitations, how it processes information, how outputs can vary depending on inputs. For example, in a practical workshop, teachers might use ChatGPT to generate a short essay or a lesson summary. They could then evaluate the output for accuracy, clarity, and bias. They might notice that while the text is well written, it sometimes includes incorrect facts, overlooks certain perspectives, or simplifies complex ideas. They might also experiment with prompts, changing wording or adding constraints to see how AI responds differ. And some preparation strategies may include offer workshops on AI classroom tools like text generators, image generators, AI tutors, or coding platforms, hands on exercises for teachers, like teachers test AI outputs, evaluate reliability, and learn to troubleshoot, and also technical literacy for ethical use. Make teachers understand data privacy setting, how AI collects information, and recognize when outputs may be biased or misleading. By combining practical experience with critical evaluation, teachers gain confidence in using AI responsibly and can guide students to do the same. And teachers must know how to design learning experience that integrate AI meaningfully. So that comes to our third topic, the pedagogical knowledge about AI. So, for example, in a co-design workshop, pre-service teachers might create a digital literacy assessment where students use AI tools like ChatGPT, AI image generators, or code based AI platforms to explore how AI works and how it can be biased. For instance, students may ask ChatGPT to generate summaries of news stories from different countries or perspectives, and then analyze the outputs to identify patterns, missing voices, or potential stereotypes. They might also experiment with AI image generation, observing how prompts influence outputs and discussing the ethical implications of representation. Assessments could include reflective commentaries, group discussions, or mini projects where students critique AI behavior and suggest ways to improve fairness or accuracy. The preparation strategies may include co design projects in which teachers guide students in exploring AI itself through hands on experiments, and ethical focused simulations, analyzing AI outputs for bias, fairness, and transparency, and assessment workshops designing AI resilient evaluations that emphasize process, reflection, and critical inquiry. And last, modeling co learning. So teachers explore AI alongside students, demonstrating curiosity, skepticism, and responsible use. By developing pedagogical knowledge, teachers learn not only to integrate AI efficiently in their classroom teaching, but also to foster critical thinking and ethical engagement with AI itself, helping students understand both the power and the limitations of those tools.
Um, I really like that you brought up different kinds of knowledge. This is something that I've been thinking a little bit about myself. So you mentioned pedagogical knowledge, you mentioned content knowledge, and I think the third was pedagogical content knowledge. Was that is that the third?
Uh, yeah, I mentioned like content knowledge, technical knowledge,
Technical knowledge.
and also, yeah, pedagogical knowledge.
So I was thinking about this the other day in the context of science education because I'm a science teacher educator. But the interesting thing is that when teacher candidates enroll in a teacher education program, all of the teacher education programs in Canada have a requirement that they have some They come to their program with the content knowledge, right? So if you want to be a biology teacher, you're expected to have a certain number of credits in that subject area to enroll in a biology curriculum course,
Mhm.
right? And that course then is intended to support you with the acquisition of pedagogical knowledge so that you can effectively teach biology. But what we don't look at within the sciences, right, is what oftentimes some programs might have specific prerequisites, but in our program, for example, you're not required to have a credit in the nature of science or the philosophy of science or the history of science. You just need a certain number of credits in the sciences and biology, and that then you're in. But we don't know if you specialized in genetics or physiology or botany. There could be a whole blend of things, and that's great. But with AI, it's interesting because I would say at this point in time, very few of us have any content, are coming to these programs with any content knowledge regarding AI, right? And I haven't done an environmental scan, but I would be surprised if many teacher education courses at this time are offering core courses or foundational courses for pre-service teachers around the ethical and effective use of AI in their classroom and with their students. In your opinion, whose responsibility could it be or should it be to prepare pre-service teachers with this sense of efficacy around using AI or around AI, we'll say? Is this something that you think teacher education programs might require as a prerequisite, or a course that might be developed in their programs, or something that school boards should be responsible for?
That's a great question. I'm thinking on different levels. Yeah, include all what you said. Like first of all, the government, like the Ontario, at like the government level, there are some new updates about their curriculum guidelines that include AI content into certain courses. But what I think is like we can teach AI in a more like interdisciplinary setting, like in mathematics, because AI is about math, right? The basic logics are mathematical, and like science and technology, and even like social studies, when we ask students to reflect on a future that impacted by technologies, digital tools like AI. Yes. So, and also, I do think that like the professional uh, development for teachers is important. As I give like guest speeches for Catholic School Board, so the teachers are curious about AI. They are so excited that AI is part of students' life, but at the same time, they're like they have concerns, and they tell me the truth like, well, I don't have much AI knowledge. How can I teach AI in my course? Are there any available tools, resources, curriculum, anything that I can use directly from like your research group? We do have resources available on our research site, but I do think teachers they should have a, like an open mindset to the technologies that they have to face in their age, and just to be brave enough to try them themselves and try with their students together, like the co-learning process I encourage. Yeah, I think it's a thing that needs like multiple levels. They work together to engage with AI tools, to learn about it, and to reshape a future with AI.
It does seem that regardless of the specific path forward, that a strategy of abstinence, perhaps that I'm not sure if that's the best way of putting it, is not tenable at this time. I know there are still some educators and teacher candidates who feel that there is perhaps an honor in just complete disengagement, that the strategy should be we don't use it in the classroom. I do my best to create assignments that are AI proof, that do not use AI in any way, and we disengage and we maintain a purity of sorts to the learning environment. But what I'm hearing is that it does take some bravery to take that next step forward and some personal responsibility, but that we are in a new time, and the strategy of complete disengagement and abstinence is perhaps not tenable at this time, and that to be part of the conversation is a better path. So let's just transition into the next question. Can you tell us about your work with design fiction pedagogy and how it can be used to help students think critically about AI and emerging technologies? I know we touched on this briefly already, but it deserves its own moment because it is a really cool concept.
Thank you for the question. So, if you are not familiar with design fiction, you must know its cousin, science fiction. Actually, in common eyes, they are so much alike. Then what's the difference? Design fiction, at its core, is a powerful method used in both future studies and human computer interaction studies to explore potential futures related to technology, including AI. It's not about making accurate predictions, but rather about using fictional prototypes, narratives, and what if scenarios to provoke thought, to explore implications, and critically examine emergent technologies like AI. It essentially allows us to narrate the future, creating tangible stories that help us understand complex ideas. In human computer interaction, it is often employed to envision how people might interact with future technologies, leading to more informed design decisions. My experience in education and my research into AI literacy revealed a significant gap in traditional approaches to AI education, particularly for K 12 learners. Like historically, AI education originated in university level educations, such as for computer science graduate students, largely designed for students specialized in machine learning, coding, and data science. The pedagogy was very much technical first, treating AI as a computational tool with a strong focus on algorithm, efficiency, etc. While essential for specialists, this approach often overlooks the broader societal or ethical implications, leaving students unprepared to critically engage with AI's wider impact. As AI has come increasingly integrated into our daily lives, K 12 AI education has begun to include discussions on AI ethics, bias, and social impact. This is a positive step. However, these discussions often remain superficial, treating ethics as a add-on or separate rather than a deeply integrated learning experience. So I've observed this firsthand. For instance, in some research, a student designed an AI robot shaped like a whale to clean ocean pollution, envisioning AI that could consume toxic waste, like eat the waste, and convert it into energy. While highly creative, this project highlighted common misconceptions about AI and scientific feasibility. The student assumed that AI could simply recognize and recycle garbage without understanding the complexities of how machine learning models are trained. There was There was also a noticeable lack of scientific grounding in real world environmental science and engineering principles for the AI powered wheel. Most critically, there was minimal ethical reflections. The student didn't consider potential risks, such as the AI harming like marine life or unintended ecological consequences. This example vividly illustrates the gap between creative AI storytelling and a meaningful engagement with AI's technical and ethical complexities. This is precisely the gap that design fiction pedagogy aims to bridge. My design fiction pedagogical model is a multimodal approach that invites students and educators to critically engage with emerging technologies through speculative design and ethical reflection. It's about combining narrative, imagination, and critical inquiry to foster holistic and human centered approaches to technology education. The model is a structured pedagogical framework guiding students through a systematic yet creative process across 7 key stages of design fiction creation. Number one, identify and research a problem. Students began their journey by researching real world problem challenges, often those directly related to AI. This initial stage grounds their work in relevant existing knowledge about AI and its societal context. Step 2, design a prototype to address the problem. They apply their theoretical knowledge to create tangible solutions, which isn't necessarily a functioning piece of software, but a conceptual design or a low fidelity prototype that addresses the identified problem. Step 3, design a future context. So, this is where the fiction truly comes in. Students extend their designs into the future, considering long term impacts of AI solution, placing it within a plausible future scenario. And step 4, building a narrative in the context. This stage involves immersive storytelling. Students develop narratives that illustrate how their AI system might function within the imagined future scenario, explicitly emphasizing the ethical and societal implications of their design choices. And step 5, share with peers and stakeholders. Collaboration is the key. Students share their work with their peers and potentially other stakeholders, whether imagined or real, focusing like fostering diverse perspectives and enriching the learning process through peer feedback. And sixth step, reflect on impacts and ethical considerations. This is a crucial stage where students engage in deep reflection, understanding the potential ethical consequences, both intended and unintended, of their AI designs with the future context they've created. And last, evaluate the viability and redesign the prototype. And this is an iterative process. It this isn't just about making the design better functionally, it's about ensuring it meets both practical viability and vigorous ethical standards, often leading to significant redesigns based on their reflections. And so, how does design fiction pedagogy specifically address the shortcomings I mentioned before and differ from traditional AI education? So, first of all, design fiction pedagogy is a future oriented and speculative approach to AI literacy. I like traditional AI learning, which often prioritize solving present day problems. Design fiction pedagogy deliberately guides students to explore per, speculative AI futures through what if scenarios. This significantly expands AI literacy beyond just the current applications, encouraging students to anticipate AI's potential roles in future governments, education, and even creative industries. This future focused length is crucial for preparing students not just for the AI of today, but for the AI of tomorrow. And second, design fiction pedagogy is an integrated ethical reflection pedagogy through narrative. A hallmark of design fiction pedagogy is that it embeds AI ethics throughout the entire learning process. Students are challenged to embed AI within future oriented narratives, prompting them to critically assess AI's potential evolution, its inherent risks, its broader societal impact, rather than treating ethical considerations as a separate theoretical discussion or something like if we have time section that might be overlooked. And storytelling becomes a powerful narrative driven tool for ethical inquiry, encouraging students to deeply explore AI's various stakeholders, potential risks, and its long term societal effects. Through peer discussions and constructive feedback on these narratives, students are able to consider unintended consequences and complex ethical dilemmas, developing a profound future literacy that extends beyond mere technical problem solving. And last but not least, it is a holistic integration of technical knowledge with societal and creative dimensions. Design fiction pedagogy excels at bridging AI technical knowledge with a broader understanding of societal impact. Unlike approaches that might separate these areas, design fiction pedagogy uniquely integrates speculative design with scientific rigor. It achieves a crucial blending of science and creativity for AI literacy. While conventional science fiction might explore miraculous, unsupported AI breakthroughs, design fiction firmly grounds design fiction pedagogy firmly grounds speculative AI learning in scientific and engineering principles. Students are prompted to apply mathematical, engineering, and code AI concepts as they craft their speculative scenarios. This ensures that their ideas remain scientifically plausible. And this dual approach enables students to explore AI from both a deeply technical and an imaginative perspective simultaneously, fostering a comprehensive understanding of AI as both a powerful technical force and a significant societal force, balancing imagination with realism. And for those interested in delving deeper into the empirical foundations and detailed applications of this model, my PhD dissertation entitled AI Education and Design Fiction provides extensive insights into the development and effectiveness of design fiction pedagogy in AI education.
I just want to highlight how helpful your work is in this area because your dissertation and your thinking and your research offers not only a pathway, which is design fiction, but also a framework, which is those 7 steps within. And I just know for myself that will be very helpful as a strategy and framework moving forward. And I'm also wondering if design fiction, in your opinion, could be used usefully, effectively with younger children as well as with older children and educators. And the reason I ask that is because although younger children, I think, would really enjoy the creative pieces and the imaginative pieces, I'm wondering how one would negotiate, for example, step 2, which is to design a prototype that addresses the problem, considering a 6 or 7 year old probably wouldn't have a lot of technical knowledge upon which to build or consider a realistic prototype that is based in some sort of scientific, realistic realm. So I'm just wondering if you consider this to be more something used by older students and adults, or if there are ways to accommodate younger learners in design fiction.
Mhm. We did some experiment on students from age 6 to like higher education, adult learning, and professional development. So design fiction pedagogy, actually, the model itself is a flexible one. For younger kids, we can concentrate on a specific topic like image recognition and show them certain AI tools that recognize their faces or their hand signatures and hand like signals. And so there's a spectrum between creative and the creative like creation and the science rigor. So for younger kids, we can move them onto more focused on the creation, like a story itself, with some basic AI knowledge. Provide them the imagination. So, what kind of world they want to live with AI and what they want AI do for themselves. Yeah, and for older kids, when they have more experience with like the prototype design, with certain rules that help them to design. Like in our camps, we have two stages for the prototyping stage. One is the physical maker stuff. They use like the maker step to design a physical prototype. Then they move their ideas and their blueprints into tools like KinterCAD and CodeSpaces Agile, in which they design their digital prototypes. So, with more details, sometimes restrained by their creativity with their hand skills. They feel delighted. They feel so happy that their ideas can come into a real picture, a real scenario, and a real story in the digital world. So, with things like that, we can just move from the spectrum, from the creativity side to the science grounding side, I think.
I have a question just for myself. I'm very excited about this approach. And if a teacher educator thinking about this as professional development, if I wanted to do something like this and equip pre-service teachers to with the confidence to try something like this in their future classrooms, would you recommend going through all 7 steps with them, like actually doing a project together, or what approach would you recommend to prepare educators to attempt this?
Mhm. That's a great question. So actually, we don't need to like follow every steps mentioned here. So we tried as short as a 1.5 hour workshop with pre-service teachers about design fiction pedagogy. We gave them like a very small project for them to design a classroom with AI tool. So imagine how AI can help them teach in their classrooms. So we didn't cover everything. We gave them like a future scenario. So it's just imagine in 20 years or in 10 years where AI is prevalent. So how could you work with AI in your classroom? Imagine a future. And they start with such a scenario. And then they create like we give them a chart paper for them to draw their prototype. And then we give them like digital tools to make a digital story about them. Yeah, it's 1.5 hour, and all of them can finish that project. And also, we tried a 5 day, like a whole day, 5 whole days camp for grade 4 to grade 8 students. So in the 5 days, we learn AI, we learn different concepts, we have a lot of conversations about it, and we cover every step. And it's an exhibition day at the end, and they show their projects, and they read their stories and show their stories. Actually, the stories can be multimodal too, yeah, to their invited guests. So it all worked.
Um, and so with the pre-service teachers, that's a very so the prompt is pretty general. Can you give us an example or two of some of the prototypes they or some of the futures they imagined with that
Okay.
prompt?
Yeah. So we give them like a digital tools of AI generated picture tools um, for them to just put their ideas into the AI tools and AI generate the picture that they use as a prototype. And also, it's like uh, actually, teachers are from different disciplines. Like some teach science, some teach English, so they have very different prototypes about AI. For language teachers, I remember example that just before ChatGPT was released, the teacher designed something like assistant that can use voice like audios to chat all the time when the teacher has problems, when the teacher wants to create a course plan, answer a student's question which the teacher himself doesn't know, like a voice assistant. And later on, we know ChatGPT was released, something very similar to the teacher's idea.
Right. Okay. Thank you. All right. I think we're at our last question. So, Dr. Lee, what advice would you give to K to 12 educators? And you've already given wonderful advice, but this is an opportunity to add anything you'd like to say. So, what advice would you give to K to 12 educators who are curious or concerned about AI's growing role in education?
All right. My advice to K-12 teachers is to approach AI with both curiosity and care. You don't need to be an AI expert to begin. Just start small. Experiment with a few tools in your own professional learning, and then bring your discoveries into the classroom. Even something as simple as testing an AI writing assistant can spark meaningful conversations with students about authorship, creativity, and bias. Rather than asking, how do I teach AI? Try reframing the question, how can AI help me and my students learn better? And what conversations would we have about its risks and limits? And this approach shifts the focus from mastering technical details to cultivating critical inquiry. Equally important is making space for deeper conversations. Encourage students to ask questions like, who benefit from this technology? Whose perspectives are missing? And what happens if AI makes a mistake? When students grapple with these questions, AI becomes more than productive tool. It becomes a lens for exploring ethics, social responsibility, and digital citizenship. Finally, don't go it alone. Build communities or attend communities of practice with colleagues where you can share experiments, challenges, and insights. No single teacher has all the answers, but together you can co create pathways for meaningful AI integration. At its best, bringing AI into the classroom isn't about keeping up with technology. It's about preparing students to imagine, question, and shape the future. And that's a journey worth taking, one curious step at a time.
Lovely. Now is the time for just 3 quick questions, rapid fire questions. And the first one is, what is one word or one sentence that you'd use to describe AI at this moment in history?
Transformative.
Certainly. Number 2, what gives you hope right now?
Yeah, seeing educational research beginning to pay serious attention to AI technology gives me hope because it means we are starting to prepare educators and learners for this new reality.
Thank you. And I also just want to add that some of the conversations I have about AI, partially due to my own worldview, can become a little bit glasses half empty, a little melancholic, like, the new transformative era is certainly going to be rife with our downfall as a species. It seems kind of cataclysmic. And I appreciate throughout this conversation that you have included so many ideas and perspectives and so much context while keeping a level perspective. And your work seems to be deeply critical and thoughtful, but critically hopeful as well. I don't hear a lot of doom and gloom, while at the same time, you're not just blindly hopeful, like this is easy, this is great, let's roll it out even faster. It seems to be really grounded and thoughtful and critical, and again, critically hopeful. So thank you for that. It's an important voice, I think, in the conversation. And finally, can you please give us 2 recommendations? And these are broad. These recommendations could be resources, articles, books, TV shows, podcasts, recipes, anything else that is interesting to you at this moment.
Yeah, for teachers, I recommend AI for K-12.org. It's a fantastic hub with curriculum guidelines and resources like lesson plans for teaching AI in schools. And for general audience, I think the UNESCO AI and Education report can be a starter. It gives a really valuable global perspective on how AI can shape learning and policy.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Dr. Lee, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation today. You've opened up my eyes and my mind to all of the potential uses and approaches to teaching AI holistically in the classroom. And I'm really excited to attempt some of these in my own practice.
And Dr. Lee, if our listeners would like to read more about design fiction or about your work, do you have any current or upcoming articles or publications, anything that you'd like to direct our listeners to that we can always link in the show notes?
Mhm. Yeah. So I have a recent article entitled Fostering Critical Thinkers and Future Designers, Design Fiction Pedagogy in AI Education, published with Thinking Skills and Creativity. That's something I have done for my empirical studies on AI education using design fiction pedagogy. Yeah, so that's what I'd like you to have a look if you're interested in design fiction pedagogy and AI education.
We would like to acknowledge that this episode was recorded on Mississauga, Mississauga Treaty and Traditional Territory at Trent University in Peterborough, Nogojiwinong, Ontario, Canada. We are grateful to the First Nations of this territory for their teachings about and care for the land on which we teach and learn. The podcast was made possible by a Trent University Knowledge Mobilization Grant and is skillfully edited and produced by our friend, James Bailey.